The night my stepmother called me sweetie and told me I'd aged well, I knew something was wrong. What I didn't know was that in less than 4 hours, my father was going to hand a microphone to a room full of his most powerful colleagues and use it to set me free. He just didn't know that's what he was doing. My name is Claire. I'm 34 years old. I run a company. And until about 8 months ago, my family had no idea. Let me start somewhere most people don't. Not with the humiliation. Not with the revenge. Let me start with a Tuesday morning in March, 7 years ago, when I was sitting on the floor of a 380-square-foot apartment in Nashville, eating cereal out of a coffee mug because I'd sold my bowls at a garage sale to make rent. I had $17 in my checking account. I had a business idea on a napkin. And I had a voicemail from my father that I hadn't listened to yet. I knew what it would say. Something polished. Something that sounded like concern, but landed like a verdict. Claire, sweetheart, your cousin Brett just got promoted to regional director. 27 years old. Just something to think about. I deleted it without listening. That was the day I decided I was done thinking about what my family thought of me. If you enjoy real-life family drama and emotional stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Quiet Drama Stories for more powerful, true-to-life narratives. Let me tell you about the Calloway family of Naperville, Illinois. My father, Gerald Calloway, built a mid-sized freight brokerage from nothing, which he will tell you, given any opportunity, at any volume. He married my mother, Diane, when they were both 26. She was brilliant, a structural engineer who used to sketch bridge plans on takeout napkins. She died of a heart condition when I was 9. Fast, quiet, devastating. 18 months later, my father married Renee. Renee came with a son, Garrett, 2 years older than me, already the kind of teenager who shook hands with adults and made them feel important. My father adored him on sight. I'm not going to tell you Renee was cruel. She wasn't. She was something almost worse. She was strategic. Every compliment she gave me was a setup for a comparison. Every soft word had an asterisk. Claire is so creative. Garrett's the one with the head for numbers, though. Said in the same breath. Said with a smile. My father never corrected her, and slowly, quietly, I became the other child. Not hated, not abused, just edited out of the main picture. I was a junior at the University of Illinois when my father called me home for what he described as a family conversation. Those words, God. Jay drove 3 hours on a Sunday night. I walked into the living room and saw him sitting behind his desk. He had a home office, mahogany, very important man energy, and Renee standing beside him with her hands folded like a school principal. He didn't look up from his papers when I walked in. We've been thinking, he said. Garrett has an opportunity. Executive MBA at Northwestern. It's competitive, it's expensive, and it's the kind of thing that builds a real future. I waited. I can't swing both his program and your tuition, so we're thinking you take a gap year, maybe 2. Get some work experience. It'll be good for you, honestly. I remember the exact sensation in my chest. Not surprise. Something colder. Recognition. I promised Mom, I said. His jaw moved. Your mother isn't here to understand how things change. That's all you're going to say? He finally looked up. It's not a punishment, Claire. It's math. I nodded once, picked up my bag, walked out. I didn't cry until I was back on the interstate, and then I cried so hard I had to pull over. But I didn't know until years later. What my Uncle Pete finally told me was that my mother had left money for my education, a private fund, separate from the estate, enough for 4 years anywhere in the country. My father had liquidated it. He used it to pay for Garrett's MBA. Nashville, again, a cereal, a napkin, $17. I got a job as an operations coordinator for a small trucking company called Blue Ridge Freight. It was not glamorous. I tracked shipments, argued with vendors, untangled scheduling disasters at 6 a.m. Something clicked for me in that chaos. I was good at it, weirdly, instinctively good, at seeing where systems broke down and how to fix them. My boss, a woman named Sandra Park, noticed. You have the brain of someone who should be running something, she told me one afternoon. Why are you here answering phones? Starting somewhere, I said. She laughed. Fair enough. Come find me when you're ready to do more than that. I took every online course I could find. Supply chain management, logistics optimization, financial modeling. I studied until midnight, slept 5 hours, got up and did it again. I didn't have a degree. I had something different. I had nothing to lose and everything to prove. 3 years after I arrived in Nashville, with a duffel bag and a Nokia with a cracked screen. I incorporated a company, Bridgeline Operations Consulting, LLC. Just me, a laptop, a shared desk at a co-working space downtown. I kept my name off everything public. No LinkedIn, no press releases. My lawyer handled all external communication. People thought they were signing with a firm. They were signing with me, at my kitchen table, in my pajamas at 11 p.m. I did it that way partly for privacy, partly because I'd watched my family dismiss me my whole life, and I knew, that if my last name was attached to anything before I was bulletproof, they'd find a way to unravel it. My grandmother, Ruth Calloway, called me every Sunday. She was my father's mother, which always struck me as baffling. How did this warm, perceptive woman raise someone so emotionally absent? But Ruth was Ruth. She asked about my work, my friends, my actual life. She sent cards with handwritten notes. She said things like, "You remind me of your mother, Claire. The good parts, the stubborn, brilliant parts." When she passed, 2 years ago, I flew home for the funeral, and sat in the back of the church, and didn't speak to my father once. 3 days later, a lawyer named Margaret Osei called me from an Atlanta firm. "Ms. Calloway, I represent your grandmother's private estate. She established a trust in your name 6 years ago. She asked that no other family member be informed of its existence. The trust was $700,000. There was a letter. I'll spare you all of it, but one line I'll never forget. I know what your father did with your mother's education fund. I tried to get him to tell you. He refused. I couldn't undo what he took from you, but I could make sure he never took anything else. Use this to build the life they told you that you couldn't have. When they finally see it, it will already be too late for them to take credit. I love you, Gran." I used part of that money to grow Bridgeline. 5 employees became 12, 1 office became 2. We landed bigger clients, better contracts, and somewhere along the way, completely, almost accidentally, we became the primary operations consulting firm for Calloway Freight. My father's company. They'd signed a 4-year contract with us. 42% of their operational efficiency ran through systems my team had designed. My CFO, a steady, perceptive man named David Chen, handled all communication. All contracts were signed under the company name. Gerald Calloway had shaken hands with my logo and never once connected it to the daughter he'd met, called too soft for business. At industry conferences, he praised us. "Bridgeline is the backbone of our operations," I once read in a trade publication. "Whoever built that company has a real gift." I framed it. I hung it in my bathroom. I looked at it every morning. 8 months ago, I got a gold-embossed invitation to my father's retirement party. Gerald T. Calloway requests the pleasure of your company. I held it for a long time. Every smart, self-protective part of me said throw it away. You've built something. You have peace. Why walk back into that room? But I knew my father, and I knew that if I walked into that room, he would do something. Some small, reflexive cruelty that would finally give me permission to be completely, permanently done. I RSVP'd yes. I wore a navy Roland Mouret dress. My grandmother's pearl drop earrings. I'd bought both myself. That part mattered more than the labels. The venue was a hotel ballroom in downtown Chicago. Crystal chandeliers. Open bar. 300 people in business formal. All there to celebrate Gerald Calloway's 40 years in freight. Renee found me at the entrance. Her eyes swept my outfit in that half-second inventory women like her specialize in. "Claire, you made it! You look wonderful!" A pause just long enough to feel deliberate. "Your father wasn't sure you'd been keeping up with yourself up there in Nashville." "Tell him I've been managing," I said. Garrett materialized from somewhere. Beautiful and effortless in a charcoal suit, some woman glittering beside him. He glanced at me the way you glance at a piece of furniture you don't remember buying. "Hey," he said. "Hey," I said back. I found my table, 14, near the kitchen doors, next to people I'd never met. Not the family table. Of course not. I drank my water. I watched. I waited. From across the room, my father caught my eye. He nodded once. That particular nod, that means I see you. I'm not stopping for you. And went back to his real guests. Fine. The speeches started at 8. I watched my father take the stage to a standing ovation. 300 people on their feet for Gerald Calloway. He was good at this. The warmth, the self-deprecating charm, the practiced sincerity. He thanked his team, his mentors, his golf buddies. He thanked Renee. He announced that Garrett would be taking over as CEO, and let the applause roll over them both. like sunlight. And then his eyes found me. Something shifted in his face. Something I'd seen before. That particular calculation. The decision to be casually unkind. And of course, he said, my daughter Claire is here tonight. The spotlight swung to table 14. Claire never quite found her footing the way Garrett did. Still figuring things out up in Nashville. Doing some kind of consulting work. He smiled. But hey, she showed up. We'll call that a win. Light laughter moved through the room. I sat very still. I smiled. I stood up. The laughter stopped. I picked up my champagne glass. Congratulations, Dad, I said. And the room was so quiet my voice carried without effort. 40 years. You built something real. I want to make sure everyone here knows that. I paused. I want to make sure everyone here knows something else too. Someday, you'll know what I mean by that. I set the glass down without drinking. I picked up my bag. Goodbye. And I walked out. Heels on marble. 300 people silent. Doors opening into the cool Chicago night. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes. Just breathed. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Contract renewal from Callaway Freight arrived today. They want another 4 years. Waiting on your word. I typed back, hold it. I'll have an answer by end of week. Renee caught me before I could start the engine. She rapped on my window. I rolled it down. Do you have any idea what you just did? Her composure had cracked somewhere between the ballroom and the elevator. You humiliated him in front of everyone he knows. He humiliated me, I said. He's been doing it my whole life. Tonight he just did it in front of witnesses. He made a joke. So did I. I rolled the window up, started the engine. My father appeared behind her. Still in his tuxedo. I could see him in my rearview mirror. He looked older than I'd ever noticed. Smaller. I drove away. Calls started at 9 the next morning. Dad, Renee, Garrett, cousin I hadn't spoken to since a Christmas 7 years ago. An aunt with just the softest concern about my emotional state. All of them saying versions of the same thing. We're worried about you. Your father loves you. He just wants what's best. I didn't answer any of them. What I did instead was fly to Atlanta and sit across a desk from Margaret Osei, my grandmother's attorney, who had a gift for laying facts out like a surgeon laying out instruments. The Bridgeline contract with Callaway Freight, she said. 30-day termination clause, standard. You can walk away. No penalties. And the trust? Legally airtight. Ruth structured it specifically to prevent any family challenge. She spent 2 years on it. Margaret looked at me over her reading glasses. She also left a note in the file. 1 sentence. She slid a piece of paper across the desk. Ruth's handwriting. Tell her not to be cruel about it. The truth will be enough. I spent 3 days writing the letter to my father. I threw away 4 drafts. The first was a list of every wound going back 20 years. Too much. The second was cold enough to be mistaken for legal correspondence. Too little. The final version was 2 paragraphs. Dad, the company you've called the backbone of your operation, Bridgeline Consulting, is mine. I built it. I own it. For 4 years, you've been depending on the daughter you told the world had no footing. I'm ending our contract. Not as punishment. As a boundary. Mom set aside money for my education before she died. You used it for Garrett's MBA. Gran found out. She couldn't undo what you took from me, but she made sure you couldn't take anything else. I don't need your apology. I don't need you to understand this. I just need you to know that I am not what you made me out to be. I never was. Don't contact me. Claire Ruth Callaway. I added my grandmother's name deliberately. David sent the formal termination notice by courier on a Monday morning. I sent my letter in a separate envelope, handwritten. By 10 a.m., I had 11 missed calls. By noon, 23. I didn't answer any of them. They showed up at my office on Wednesday, all 3 of them, my father, Renee, Garrett, standing in my lobby under my company logo, looking like people who had just discovered the building they'd been standing on was a trap door. I had them shown to a conference room with glass walls. I took a breath. I thought about my grandmother. I walked in. My father looked gray. Garrett looked furious. Renee looked like she was running calculations. I sat at the head of the table. Hello. What is this? My father's voice was low, strained. Claire. This is some kind of misunderstanding. You can't possibly. I own Bridgeline Operations Consulting, I said. Incorporated 7 years ago. I have the documents if you'd like to review them. You don't have a degree, Renee said, and I think she meant it as a blow. No, I agreed. You and Dad made sure of that. Garrett slapped his hand on the table. Do you know what happens to our workforce if you pull this contract? Real people, Claire. Real jobs. I'm aware. I've been running the systems that protect those jobs for 4 years. This is revenge. It's a resignation. There's a difference. My father leaned forward. His voice dropped to something almost private. What do you want? Tell me what you want and we'll talk about it. I looked at him for a long moment. Nothing you can give me. I meant it. I wanted a father who saw me. I wanted my mother's education fund you spent on Garrett. I wanted to not be the punchline at your retirement party, in front of everyone you've ever known. I folded my hands on the table. Those things are gone. I don't want your money. I don't want your apology, not the kind you're offering, which is really just a negotiation. I want you to know the truth. That's all. The truth, he repeated. That I built something real. That your success for the past 4 years has been partly built on my work. And that you spent 30 years looking right through me. Silence. If you contact me after today, calls, emails, showing up, I'll have no choice but to let the truth become public, not to hurt you. Just because I'm done carrying secrets that aren't mine. I stood. Margaret Osei handled my grandmother's estate and mine. Ruth spent 2 years making sure you couldn't challenge any of it. I watched his face do something complicated at the mention of his mother's name. She knew. Dad, she knew what you did with Mom's money. She couldn't stop you then. She made sure she could protect me from the next time. I opened the conference room door. My assistant will show you out. I won't pretend the walk back to my desk was graceful. I sat down, put my hands flat on my keyboard, and stared at the wall for a full 3 minutes before I could think about anything else. Then I opened my laptop, got back to work. 6 weeks later, Callaway Freight announced layoffs. 30% workforce reduction. The press release cited strategic repositioning. Everyone in the freight industry knew what had actually happened. A company had built itself around a single consulting partner and had no contingency when that partner left. Garrett, 3 months into his CEO tenure, was already in crisis management. My father came out of retirement to help. The triumphant exit he'd staged, the party, the standing ovation, the handoff, was a thing the business press was now using to frame a cautionary tale. I heard about most of this through Uncle Pete, who called me sometimes, through industry contacts who didn't know the full story but knew pieces of it. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt something stranger, sadder, and more honest than satisfaction. I felt tired. Tired of the weight of it. Tired of the story. Ready, finally, to put it down. I found a therapist in Nashville, Dr. Simone Reeves. A calm woman with an office full of plants and a habit of asking questions that sounded simple until you tried to answer them. Do you miss them? She asked me once. I thought about it for a long time. I miss the family I thought I had when I was 8 years old, I said. I miss my mother. I miss who I thought my father was before I understood what he was. But the people they actually are? No, I don't miss them. I'm just learning to grieve the difference. She nodded. That's real work. It is, I agreed. Outside that office, my life was good. Bridgeline replaced the Callaway contract with 4 smaller clients. More stable, better diversified. David got a promotion he'd earned twice over. We moved to a bigger space with actual windows. Uncle Pete and I had dinner every few weeks. He told me stories about my mother I'd never heard. She'd been stubborn, apparently. Tenacious. A woman who would fight about something for 6 hours and then turn around and make everyone laugh. You're her, he said one night. Just more strategic. I visit my grandmother's grave when I'm back in Illinois. I leave tulips, which she loved. I stand there and talk to her, which probably looks strange to anyone passing by, but I've stopped caring about that particular category of judgment. I did it, Gran, I told her once. I built something real. I didn't let them take it. The wind moved through the trees. I let myself imagine she heard me. Here's what I want to leave you with. My father stood at a microphone in front of 300 people and used me as a punchline. He thought he was reminding everyone in that room, reminding me, of exactly how small I was. What he actually did was close a door I'd been holding open for 34 years. That door had been costing me everything. I don't hate my father. Hate is a chain, and I've been unshackling things for a long time now. I have no interest in picking up something new and heavy, but I also don't carry his version of me anymore. The daughter who didn't find her footing, who never quite measured up, who needed to be explained away at family gatherings. That version of me died in a parking garage in Chicago on a Tuesday night. The real one drove home. If there's someone in your life who has decided what you're worth before watching you build anything, I see you. I've been you. And I promise you this. The life you build without their approval will be more yours than anything you ever could have built with it. Your worth was never theirs to decide. It never was. Thank you for being here. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own family, your own boundaries, your own quiet strength, subscribe to Quiet Drama Stories. There's more where this came from. Until then, this is Claire, and I'm finally, completely, irreversibly free.